you're the worst brother ever. You never let me do anything fun. You know? And I'm like, I don't want this hassle, man. You know, do it at someone else's house.
Hi, I'm Bram van der Goes, and thanks for listening to the Before and After Show, the podcast in which we are zooming in on specific moments in life that brought you further. My personal before and after moment was specifically last year when I was not happy in my job. Fortunately, I was lucky enough that CCV gave me the opportunity to figure out what I really like to do. I have to say it was quite a challenge and I had to do a lot of puzzling, but eventually I knew what to do. Make podcast. Podcast about personal stories, personal journeys, but most important, your personal events. These specific moments in life that brought you further. My manager loved the idea and said, go. So, enjoy this episode while walking, sitting, running, sleeping, or however you like to listen to podcasts. And let's start. In short, they were born, not at the same time. They are brothers, lived in the Netherlands, moved to the United States, went back to Europe, started a rock band, toured around, started a PR communication agency, sold the company, founded Waardegedreven, initiated the Church of Change. And next to that, they were separately in the board of different social charities. And they are still young. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to introduce you, the brothers Stephan and Ummelen. Welcome.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope it covers a little bit the things you already did. We will zoom a little bit more onto Waardegedreven, of course, and the Church of Change. But first, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better, and we will dive a little bit more into your past. But let's start with some short statements. You can only answer with yes or no. And during this podcast, we will hopefully get a bit deeper into these answers, so that you can explain a little bit more. But for now, it's only yes or no.
All right. Do we do it at the same time?
No, please do it separate. Well, it could be interesting if you do it
I know,
at the same
right?
time. Yeah, it's true.
Okay, let's try. Let's try at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, first question. I will always work with my brother.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, that's good. I miss the work I did for Take Two.
No.
No.
One day we'll go back to America and start a business there.
No.
No.
All right. So that's good, eh? You're brothers and you're aligned.
Yeah, it seems so. Yeah. We
So
didn't
far,
prepare this.
So
Yeah.
far, so good.
Yeah, exactly. No surprises. Okay, thank you for these answers. We will zoom in a little bit more into that later on. I think we will talk about it while discussing other things as well. But first, we like to, or I like to zoom in a little bit on your past. You are brothers, so you go way back. What is the first memory you have from each other?
That is a really good question, man.
That's an original. I've never been asked
I know. And and usually we're like really quick on answers, you know, as you've noticed.
Yeah.
'Cause we've thought of everything before, but this is new. This is something I have to think about. I do remember playing. Yeah, go. No, you first.
All right, so my brother used to be taller than I was, and that resulted in him teasing me a lot. The first memory I have of him is probably chilling in our bathtub. We were like 2 and 5, and him teasing me by like wetting a towel and putting it on my head and laughing at me. I think that was the first memory I have of my brother.
Yeah, that's where it all. That's where your passion for like one-upping me comes from.
The rest of my life is pretty much taking revenge for that moment.
Exactly. No, it's funny because I don't have like very many clear memories of that because it's the moving around a bit that really got us much closer together. And before that time, we were kind of like doing our own thing, you know. And but I do remember when we moved to the States, and this was when we were way older. We played a lot of basketball together because, you know, obviously we were uprooted from our life here. And then in the States, we didn't have any friends yet, you know, because we didn't live there very long. but we did have a nice basketball post on the driveway. So that's how we spent a lot of the time playing basketball against each other. And this was the time when we were still kind of like as
Rivals.
well, yes, but also you hadn't outgrown me yet because he's like 1 meter 91, right? And I'm only 172. So when he was like 15, I could still take him in basketball. But you know, by the time he was 18, he was much taller than me. I couldn't beat him anymore. So I remember very distinctly playing against him and becoming increasingly frustrated because I couldn't beat him anymore.
So there was competition between the two of you. Was it always like that? Stefan?
Yeah. When did we bury the hatchet, Sander? I don't know. I don't remember.
Well,
I guess when you started working for me.
I guess so too. No, I mean,
Yeah.
the first time we actually started to seriously work together was when Stefan and I came back to the Netherlands, and we were kind of searching, you know, for our place back in our home country, which didn't feel like my home country anymore. And then my brother met some friends at his study, and he started a band, and they didn't have a singer yet. So they said, my brother called me. He said, "Do you want to sing?" Because I used to sing in a band in the States. So that's how our first like real working relationship got started.
The first collaboration.
Exactly.
And was it always a dream to work together?
No.
No, it was more of a it was more of a nightmare working
Yeah.
together. And then it just clicked.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, I have a brother, and he's kind of a nice guy, and you know, we're out of puberty, and we tended to work well together. So from the band onwards, we played nicely.
Yeah, it was like in the beginning, how do you say that? It was a collaboration of convenience. I mean, I was looking for something to do. He was looking for a singer for his band. But from there on, you start to like really work together and get to know each other on a different level. You know, like okay, we have something that we both want. Let's make it happen. You know, and then you discover, okay, you have some really interesting ideas and skills, and mine are complementary to that. So you know, we were having some success, yeah, in our collaboration. I mean, not musically, but everything around it, we were really good at. We're good at organizing. We're good at the communication and PR thing. You know, getting marketing
Gigs.
together, gigs. You know, and then we're at some points we're like, all right, so if we can do this for the band, maybe we can do this for other people too. So that's how we kind of got started in our professional career.
Oh, nice. We will zoom in onto that later on as well. But first, let's get back little bit to your childhood, because I think you said it, Sander, that you moved a lot within the Netherlands before you moved to the United States. And why was that?
Well, my father has a career in journalism. So I was born in Eindhoven, and 3 years later we moved to the north of the country to a little town called Schagen. And that's when my brother was born, 3 years after me. He was born in the hospital in Alkmaar. So that was already our first move, you know, after 3 years. So we lived there for a while, and then we moved to Nijmegen because my dad got a job there. And pretty much all of our moves was due to the fact that my dad got a new job somewhere else. And this also was the reason why we moved abroad.
Okay, because I can remember when I grew up, my father, I was born in Venray, that's in Limburg, in the south.
Yeah.
And when I grew up, at one point, my father started working in The Hague. And he said, I can recall very clearly because I have two brothers as well. Oh, not as well, I have two brothers. And at one point, we were sitting at the table and eating, and my father said, hey, what do you think about moving to The Hague? And I think this discussion only lasts 10 seconds because the three of us all shouted, no, we don't want to move. We will stay here forever.
Yeah.
And then
Rise where it's at.
I know.
and that's it, you know. But for you, it was different.
Same thing happened to me is when my dad came back when he got the promotion to become a correspondent in Washington. I think I spent the whole afternoon crying. I was like 10. I was like, I didn't want to leave my friends or the Netherlands, everything I trusted.
But it seems to me like there was never a question posed in our family. It was like really nice, and of course the family got together, and then we sit around the table, and then it's like, well, we have something to tell you. We are moving away. It wasn't like, how do you feel about moving away? No, no, no. We are moving away, and how are you feeling about that? Because it's happening.
Yeah.
And also, you're not allowed to tell anyone because it was still not made public. Because it was a pretty big deal within the journalistic community because there's not a lot of opportunities. It's kind of like one of the most prestigious things you can do within that organization to become a correspondent for the United States.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to keep our mouths shut for about a month or two. And I was
I don't
14.
remember that.
Oh, I do. I do. Maybe you were kept in the dark in the first place. Maybe my dad said, "Don't tell your little brother either."
Probably.
To make it even bigger.
I don't know, but I was actually quite excited about the prospect of moving.
Yeah. And within, moving within the Netherlands, that was okay for you as well.
Well, I don't quite remember because it's different. You when you're young, you just go to school, you make friends really easily, you know. And the older you get, it's much more difficult because a lot of groups of friends, they're already settled, and it's difficult to
Angle.
integrate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I gotta say, the move back to the Netherlands was the toughest move I've ever made.
Hmm.
Yeah, going to America was easier because everything was new. I mean, the first year was tough, right? Because you don't have any friends and the language barrier. Our English was all right, but it wasn't native, so we had to get
Speak
used to
for
that.
yourself.
Yeah, well,
I was like 11. I didn't speak a word of English.
that's true. That's true. No, but
Yeah,
my
because
English was my English was all right because I played a lot of video games and watched a lot of cartoons. So
Oh, yeah. So you, Stefan, you were 11
Hmm.
years old, and Sander, you were 14 years old then.
Yep.
But you didn't speak any English at that point. How was that?
No.
That's tough, right? How was that for you?
I remember my parents kind of figured that'd be a problem for me that I didn't speak the language, so they sent me to like language training, a language training center, and I was like, like this tall, and I was explaining something that people were teasing me at school, and I used the expression, I think, and then I stood for dick. Meaning that ik stond voor lul,
Yeah.
which is of course doesn't translate well in English, and we all had a big laugh at that. But no, I moved to the States without speaking pretty much any English, and but it goes really quickly, especially when you're young. So I think it took like 2-3 months before people couldn't even tell that I had an accent.
and you kind of learn how to use your unique backstory to your advantage, you know, because we were the Europeans, you know, in our school. I don't think there were many people from really outside the country. Stefan had this angle when talking to the ladies. He would be like,
Oh yeah.
"Hi, I'm Stefan from Europe."
And when I'm introducing myself to dudes, I'd just be like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Stefan."
And did it work out if you introduce yourself like that to the ladies?
Rarely.
Well, that was one of the things too, because when you get older, you start to look at things differently. At first, you're like, okay, that's my little brother, and he annoys me, and he's just there, you know.
Mhm.
And then after a while, you start to see, look, this guy has a lot of friends. He's very popular. He has he has a house party every weekend. You know, he does all sorts of interesting.
That's because I used to make fake IDs. That gets you real popular really quickly in high school.
Yeah. Oh man, there's some good stories to tell. Stefan, how about you start that? I mean, I don't want to take over your show, but
You can.
I know where this is going.
yeah, well, Stefan had a knack for entrepreneurship. Let's just put it that way, and he put on some side hustles during his high
True.
school time.
Please share some, Stefan,
Please share.
if you
Are you
like.
sure? Are you sure? All right.
Yeah, of course.
This is a story about me becoming a porno dealer. And my mother always used to have this big scary thought. It's like I'm immigrating to the United States with two brothers that are into their puberty. So her worst nightmare was us getting into some trouble and them having to move back while one of us was in jail. You know, United States jail, which is different than Dutch jail. So that was keeping her up at night. So I was 14 and I was bored because you get bored in the United States in middle school. And I met this kid named Joshua, and Joshua was also very bored. Joshua had a stepdad who was a cop, and he always used to wear sunglasses. He had like a mustache. His name was Bill.
It was like the typical, prototypical,
Yeah, and he walked the beat in Washington, D.C., and he was very authoritative. But Bill laid down the law for others, and for himself, he took some shortcuts. So he had illegal cable. Meaning that his house would receive illegal cable hookup, would receive any paid channel. What he didn't realize is that those paid channels got broadcast into Joshua's room, which was the basement. Meaning that he had all sorts of sports channels and that kind of stuff. But also the Spice channel, which was like soft porn. You didn't really see any close-ups or anything, but it was, erotic in nature. So we were super interested as 14-year-old middle school kids. And, we used to be very conflicted between, do we watch this? But then we watched it together. That's kind of weird. So, we brought in a VCR recorder, which was pretty practical. And this VCR recorder used to get used a lot. And then we take the tapes back to our house. And then afterwards, we were like, okay, so I've seen this tape like 7 or 8 times. Maybe we can sell this. This is like this was before the internet, so the market was unlimited, and middle school, these are people that are like 14, 15. So I took these tapes back to middle school. I sold them, and within a day, I was sold out. So me and Joshua were like, this is some opportunity right here. So we figured out, every night we would record like 6 hours of Spice Channel, Bill's Spice Channel. And sell them. And, that worked out for a while until we realized the market was way bigger than our supply. So we figured, like, can we hook up more VCRs to one cable channel? And, it worked. So we hooked up 2 or 3 or 4 and exponentially increased our production capacity, right? So these tapes sold as well. And then, word gets around. I'm 14, I don't really know how the world works. One day I get called down to the principal's office. And right before that, something happened. We were sitting in our family table. One of the Dutch traditions we've always kept was eating dinner as a family. And my mom gets a call. She picks up the phone. And it's I just see her just going from friendly to scared, and it's the principal. And the principal's like, "Ma'am, we have to talk. Stefan's in trouble." And she realizes it's her worst nightmare. She's like, "Oh my God, no! This is the moment that they're going to jail." It's like, "What is it? Is it drugs?" And then he spoke the illustrious words, "No, ma'am, it's porn." So the next day, I get called down to the principal's office. There's this whole spiel about, us not believing in God and that kind of stuff. And the principal, he's like, Mr. Zarchin, his name was. He was like, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to take all your so-called earned money and buy back all these tapes and deliver them to me. And I was like, yeah, sure. So he completely underestimated our market because, I think by then we sold like 120 tapes at $20 each.
Wow.
Which is a fortune for a small kid, right?
Exactly.
So that was an all-nighter. We went to Joshua's basement and just went all night just producing tapes. And like the next day gave him 16 tapes. Like, this is all we have. And it's like, yeah, this is, I'm not going to report you to the police, but it's a close call.
And after that, you stopped with this business.
Well, you got a new side scheme going.
Yeah, after that, I figured I was kind of hooked on money by then, and I was like, my brother had this license, this driver's license, and it expired or something, and I was like, hey, maybe I can change the date on this, because we have the same last name, and that turned out to a fake ID, which meant I figured out how to make fake IDs, and that's a felony offense that could actually lead to jail. But I did that for a while to finance a lot of parties.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it will make you very popular, right?
Yeah, and combined with the fact that my dad used to like go on these journalistic trips all over the country and take my mom because they figure you're mature enough to be left alone. There's this influx of bored teenagers, a house with a pool, a fake ID to get alcohol, and enough money to buy it.
Yes,
which, gets you pretty popular.
And don't forget the whole American teenage culture, which, there's a lot of raging hormones and they're not allowed to do anything, so, and they find a way,
Yeah.
So it was an interesting learning school for us. And it's funny because I was always goody two-shoes in this relationship. I'm always like, Stefan, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? You're gonna get in trouble. Don't. And at one point, he was gonna throw a house party at our house, and my parents were gone, and he invited like 30 friends. Because that's what people in America do. When parents are out of town, everyone comes over. They trash the place, and then you spend 2 days cleaning up. That's how it goes. And I'm like, no, I forbid you. I forbid you to throw a party here. And he's like, you're the worst brother ever. You never let me do anything fun. And I'm like, I don't want this hassle, man. Do it at someone else's house.
You weren't able to convince him.
No, he never. Well, one thing you need to know about my brother, he doesn't listen to other people. I mean, he has a very, he has a mind of his own. I mean, I do too. But I think we listen to each other. But we never admit it. So if Stefan tells me something, I'm like, no, you're wrong. And then after the conversation's over, then I start thinking about what he actually said, Yeah. So this rivalry that you were talking about, it's kind of still there. And I think it's healthy. It keeps us sharp.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, how long did you stay in America?
6 years.
6 years, okay. And now,
Yep.
and was it all fun? Did you, if you think about it, was it because Sander, you already mentioned that when you were going back, it was a hard time for you. So I imagine that you really enjoyed your time in America.
Me, I loved it. The first couple of years were difficult, but then I found a couple of friends. You kind of want, when you're young, you want a place to belong. You want some people that you form a group with. So I found such a group, and it was nice. I had a good time with them. I mean, it was kind of boring. High school is boring. It's the society there is completely different. If you're not, everything is built around the school life. Yeah, so you got all these extracurricular school activities, and I was too stubborn to join in on any of those. I'm like, no, I decide what to do with my free time, But that resulted in me being very bored very often. But I got this band, which was nice. But when I was 18, I graduated, and then I went to university. And for a long time, I considered those 2 years the best 2 years of my life.
Yeah.
It was going to university in America is a unique experience that everyone should have. It was incredible, and I loved it. And it was just...
Sander still has, not a lot of people know this, but Sander still has the tattoo of his fraternity, Delta Sigma Phi, on his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I decided, by this time we knew we were going back because my dad has maxed out his tenure there. So he was not allowed to stay beyond those 6 years.
Yeah.
So we knew exactly, okay, so after this, it's over. We're going back to the Netherlands because I can't afford to stay there by myself. I was 21 years old. We didn't have green cards or anything, so we couldn't work there either. Tuition in the United States is very high. I think it was about 10 or 15,000 euros a year to study. So there's no way I was going to do that. So we were going back. But because we were going back, it's like, all right, we got to get everything out of this experience that we can. So I joined a fraternity. I'm like, I've seen all these movies, all these American movies, and I'm like, all right, I got to do this because if I don't do this now, I'm gonna regret it for the rest of my life. And so it happened. I met a couple of guys who were in kind of an alternative fraternity, because I'm not one of these jock types. So and I felt quite at home with these guys. So I joined up, and I was a member of Delta Sigma Phi Alpha chapter, University of Maryland, for a year.
And how was this for you, Stefan?
The first year was terrible. When I went to America, I got uprooted. Everything that I needed to feel safe was just like taken away from my life. I didn't speak the language, obviously. And the worst part about it was I joined like a middle year. So all middle school is from grade 6 to 7 to 8. And I joined in grade 7, meaning that all the social clubs had already formed if you don't make a good first impression. And this is me with like too long hair, European hair, and my pants were too tight, not baggy enough. So I got shunned like right away. And I didn't really have the emotional baggage to kind of make friends. So I got really, really isolated and felt pretty shitty for maybe 2 years. And afterwards, there was this great reshuffle where you graduate middle school, go to high school, and everyone is insecure because no one has the same social circles anymore. And by that time, I was Americanized, and things went really well for me.
Okay, yeah, that's good to hear.
So the 4 years of high school, especially the last 2 years, when my parents thought I was mature enough to leave us, and the house parties, that was just an awesome, amazing time. I don't know if you've ever seen what's that movie called again with McLovin?
Oh,
Superbad.
Superbad.
I don't know.
Superbad. Yeah.
It was exactly like that.
Serious?
And yeah, great fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. So at one point, you had to move back to America, to the Netherlands, and I think Sander, you already said that it was horrible for you. Was it horrible for you as well, Stefan?
I mean, it was as horrible as going to America, but less so because I learned a lot about being on my own, about not having friends, but having confidence. So the time it took for me to integrate here was a lot shorter than in the States. In the States, it took like 2 years of being lonely. And all I remember from moving back to Holland is just like a really boring summer because I didn't really know anyone. And then afterwards, school started. I started the band, and that was easy going.
Yeah. So let's zoom in on the band because I think you both joined the band. But it was quite serious, right?
Yeah. I mean, we took ourselves very seriously.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. And it was serious in a way that we had ambition, and we wanted to get everything out of it that we could. I've always had this dream of being on stage. I've always been a big fan of rock music and bands. I'd go to festivals every year, and look at all these heroes on stage. I'm like, wow, I can't imagine like being there myself. And then there was this rock band, and okay, so these guys actually know how to play. All right, we can make this into a real thing. Let's see what we can do. And we worked really, really hard at it. And we had some moderate success. And but most of the success we had was stuff that we created ourselves. Because you have two types of bands in my mind. You have bands that are really, really musically talented, and they get discovered, by programmers or journalists, and they get boosted and promoted, and then they get into the scene. And you have bands like us who do it just by hard work, and that was us.
There were back in the day. There were in our hometown of Nijmegen, or temporary hometown. There were 3 bands that were always playing around here. And 2 of those bands really made it. Like one is the Stats, and the other one is Go Back to the Zoo. Yeah. And we were in the 3rd band.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the story of Anvil?
The story of Anvil.
Yeah, it's a document. Yeah, it's a documentary about a metal band in the 80s. Who were on stage with Bon Jovi, with Anthrax, with the big bands of the time. And it's kind of the same thing. All those bands made it except Anvil. We
Oh
are
yeah,
the
I know that
Anvil
one.
in
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
great documentary. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but the
No, but it's
competition, if you compare it to the start and go back to the zoo, the competition was big, right?
yeah, absolutely.
I
But
mean, this was before they were the stat. This was they were called Puda, but they were already a lot better than we were. But we we didn't admit
no,
that.
there's a lot of different factors for success, right? And
Hmm.
the singer songwriter for the Staat is just a creative genius. You know, I'm very impressed with his musical vision, and he had the skills and the knowledge to make it happen because he didn't only write the music, he produced it as well, and it was obvious from the beginning, like this band is going places, you know. And we were a different, we're in a different category. I mean, we could have some success, but based on different on a different foundation. And the
Hmm.
foundation was uh, we just performed the hell out of every stage we got. We tried to, but our songs were not that smart as theirs,
Hmm.
I think.
So, but it was so it was pretty serious, and you wanted to achieve something. But at one point, at what point did you decide? Okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to continue with this band, or are we going to stop?
Stefan, do you want to tell? Because this here we go into the realm of our professional career.
Okay, sure. Well, when we were students, we didn't really have anything to do, so we practiced like twice a week. There was this one year where we had like 160 gigs in a year, and we were really committed. And then, real life kicked in, and I started this advertising agency. So I had to balance my time between, staying up till 3 a.m. and working the next day. So we dialed down the practicing. We went from twice to once a week. We played less gigs because we needed our sleep. We were getting to be old men, and one time we were in Arnhem and we played like one of our hit songs, and one of the guys screwed up like the format of the song. Like he didn't remember the song that we played literally thousands of times. So I was like, okay, this, instead of it going like this, upward swing, it's going downward swing because we're just not putting enough time and effort into it. And when I see something going downwards, it's for me, I tend to jump ship. So I was like, okay, this is going worse than we ever were, and I need perspective on anything I work on. So we were not as good as we used to be. That is something I can't deal with. So yeah, I quit.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's your perspective, and obviously I was there on stage, and a little context maybe makes the emotional impact a little bigger because we were opening for the festival that we had organized ourselves, and it was my project.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of time and effort into the programming. I got a lot of friends who are in bands on stage together. I made sure we had some press there, you know, and we traditionally would open the festival, you know, as the hosts of the
Hmm.
festival. The first song, completely blown, and I've never been so embarrassed in my life, you know. So I was while I was on stage, I was trying to save the show, and obviously it was impossible because the whole thing kind of fell apart, and I was disappointed and angry and embarrassed at the same time. And then Stefan says, "This band, you know, is on the downswing. I don't think I want to do this anymore." And I was high in my emotion. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if Stefan quits, I quit too. I don't want to be in a band without Stefan. So, you know, that was kind of like the beginning of the end of the band.
Lots of stories.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds really adventurous as well. But
Yeah.
but next to that, you started your company. Why did you how did you come up with that to
Well,
start your
I mean,
company?
if you're in an amateur band and you're ambitious, you'll take anything you get.
Mm.
So our salary used to be like a crate of beer and maybe $50 gas money. And I figured I needed a way to get some money. I was really bored with school. if you graduate high school, you can't go to a university here. You have to do your PE first, your propeduizen. So I kind of had to settle for a study that I really didn't want to do. And I got bored real quick, and I was like, okay, so I want to make some money, the entrepreneurship. I want to make some money without making fake IDs or selling pornography to children. And I figured, why not start a company, a communications agency, because we're supposed to be learning all kinds of things in the school, but I want to experiment with it. I want to go faster than my school was going.
It's maybe nice to also say that the guy you started the company with was someone that we met through the band. He was a photographer, and he was really good.
Yeah, so I figured, this could be commercialized, and we could do creative things and make money from it, which was very different from our experience with the band.
And then maybe it's nice to say, because we always say, okay, so we used to be in advertising, and then we sold the company. It's a little more nuanced than that, because when Stefan said, I'm going to start a communication agency, I told him, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. You haven't even finished high school yet. What do you know about communication and creativity? You can't even draw a stick figure. What are you doing in creative communication? So good luck, but this is going nowhere. And then obviously, it was going somewhere. I was stuck waiting tables in a restaurant, for money. And then a year or so later, I'm like, oh man, I made a mistake. This is obviously not a career path for me. Waiting tables in restaurants. So this thing that Stefan's doing, this sounds like promising. It's interesting, And Stefan, do you still have some work to do? And he's like, well, you're a little late, buddy. You had your chance. We don't have any more room for a partner. There's already 4 partners in the firm. But we're looking for someone to do all this administration bullshit that I don't want to do. So if you want to do this at minimum wage for 10 hours for 10 hours a week, be my guest. And I'm like, all right. If I'm in, I'm in, And so I started filling in Excel sheets and trying to whip this company into shape, making it organized better, And, from one thing led another, and then my role expanded and got more substance, and that's how I got involved.
Yeah, my family wasn't really keen on my entrepreneurship at first. My brother reaction was like, well, what are you doing? You haven't graduated yet. My parents, who have never been in contact with entrepreneurship, they were like, no, you can't do this. You have to work for a boss at least 10 years. And then if you still want to do this thing, then do it. And it got to the point where my brother was working on contracts for me. And we were at the family table, and my mom, who was always, very risk avoidant, she was like, "Okay, so Stefan, when are you gonna get an actual job, with job security, like your brother?" And he was working for me.
My brother was paying my salary.
Yeah, but she knew that, right?
Yeah, but she did, but she didn't, put two and two together.
Did not compute. Okay. No, it's partly, I suppose, a generational thing. My parents grew up in a different reality. Okay, so there's institutions and structures and companies, and you need financial stability, and the best way to do that is to go into loondienst. How do you say that? Employeeship, I guess. Mm-hmm. But we obviously grew up in America, and the idea of American success is different than what my parents are used to. It's if you say here, hey, I'm going to start a company, a lot of people are going to tell you, okay, think about the risk. Are you sure you're going to do that? Blah, blah, blah. If you say in America, I'm going to start a company, everyone is going to say, good job, go for it, awesome, you're gonna
Make
succeed.
your own luck. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a completely different culture there.
Yeah. So you took that mindset to the Netherlands as well,
Well, he
right?
I
did.
guess a little bit.
Yeah. Stefan did, but you did less, Sander, in that
I did
sense.
less, and I am more, I guess, a child of my parents, and I'm also risk avoidant, and I don't mean to be, but it's kind of like in my personality,
Mhm.
um, and that's okay as long as you understand that in order to create something, you have to take risks, you
Mhm.
know. But if you have created something, those risks need to be managed also. So this is why I suppose my partnership with Stefan is as successful as it is, because we complement each other also in mindset.
Mhm.
Stefan sees opportunities, I see risks, and I help him uh, avoid pitfalls, and he helps me to create something good. You know.
Yeah. But how was this the same when you decided to stop with Take Two, with the company you started, Stefan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. Same with the band. You know, I was in an organization where the perspective dwindled because we weren't on the same page anymore. So I saw, creative differences. So that's when I saw it going on a downswing, and I didn't want to be part of that anymore. So I wanted my freedom back to do what I really wanted. So I was the one to take the first step to
Hmm.
say, I'm leaving. And I was CEO of this company, so that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and more so because uh, much like my band, um, the company, it was called Take Two, brand agency, or I guess brand identity.
Hmm.
It became really part of my personal story. You know, it's like, okay, Take Two is me, and I am Take Two. You
Yeah.
know, and it's everywhere I go. I spread the word about what I do and why I do it. You know, it's I was engulfed. So when the downswing came, I was very conflicted because I had to make a really tough decision, right? Because I had a nice position, I had a secure job position. I was making money every month, but I wasn't too happy either. Also, because I felt like what we wanted to do and what we're actually doing wasn't aligned
Mhm.
enough. So Stefan said, "I want to leave. Are you coming with me?" I'm like, "What? No, no, you can't leave. Don't leave me, you know?" And he's like, "Well, we have to do something because we tried from inside out to convince people to go into a certain direction and it didn't work. So we have to take the responsibility to make the change ourselves, you
Mhm.
know?" And I'm like, "Well, are you going to hire me again?" And he's like, "No, I'm not going to hire you. I'll partner with you." And I'd never been an entrepreneur in my life, you know? So this was like, okay, I don't know if I want to do this. This is a completely different ball game for me now. So all of a sudden, I have to take responsibility for something I've never done before. So it took me a while to get into that, to make that decision. To
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're risk avoidance, so it's a huge leap of faith. But you
Yeah,
had to like untangle your personal identity from your professional identity before you could make that change
exactly.
as well.
Yes, and also that risk avoidance. Um, I kind of got to see that in a different perspective because in avoiding one risk, you are sure of a negative outcome. So it's not risky, but you know exactly where it's going. So if I stay without Stefan, I'm going to be unhappy and I'm not going to be able to do what I really want to do.
Mhm.
So, but in order to escape that, I have to take a leap of faith. So where do I put my trust in? Do I put it into some kind of construct that we created ourselves with a bunch of people that I really don't have the same feeling for anymore as I used to? Or do I put my faith in something I believe in and in my brother, not knowing what the result will be, but it will be a good decision nonetheless? And at this time, I had a small apartment. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't have a dog I have to feed. So I don't have a lot of responsibilities in my life to take on. So I don't have a house. So if there is ever one point in time to take this leap, it's right now. So I finally got myself to a place where I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do this. And you know what? If this fails, it's okay because the risks are manageable. And I am pretty sure that if I don't do it, I'm going to regret this later on. It's the same thing that I said earlier. And that kind of pushed me over the edge and best decision I ever took in my life.
And that's the problem with this Dutch mindset, but that my parents had when I told them I was going to be an entrepreneur. They're saying like you work 10 or 15 years, and then if you learn the game, then try it for yourself. It's also risk avoidance, but I believe that the best time to experiment and to play is when you are just graduated, or when you're in your 20s, because you don't have all these mortgages and these kids, etc. So the buy-in is a lot cheaper than it will be generally when you're 30 plus or 40 plus.
But how was the mindset of the company, the Take Two company, that different from yours, Stefan? Because you were the CEO, I can imagine that you were pulling the lines and you can decide what way you wanted to go.
Right, but I mean, like formal power is very different than informal power. You're not the boss of what people are motivated by. So I was getting into. I used to read a lot of management books. Right, the books that you have this whole display case for in bookstores, like this is a good manager, this is how you lead a company, etc., etc. And I read all of them, and I was getting bored with them as well. And then one time I switched to a book about philosophy, and I was like, this is very interesting, because we, as an advertising agency, we're looking for the meaning behind companies, right? It's like, why are you the best at what you do? How are you forming meaningful relationships? What are you giving to society? Those kinds of questions. And I found that philosophy books had a lot more answers to those questions than management books. So I excused myself for about a half a year from being CEO, to kind of like formulate a plan to change our company to be something special, because there's advertising agencies are a dime a dozen. We were already working with concepts like identity and relationships building. And then after this half a year, I came back. It's like, guys, I have the answer to all our problems. We are going to change. We are going to be a unique, exclusive company, not only dealing with creative graphic stuff or building websites, but we also want to have philosophical retreats for leaders. We also want to do HR. We want to have an integrated company. So we are going to change. And I was like, okay, so I'm presenting this with all my heart and energy. And I asked the questions. We have 14 employees back then. I asked the questions like, so who's in? And only one set of hand goes up, and it's my brothers.
No,
and,
this
and
is
then,
exactly,
then I realized we had a wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is exactly what happened. And it was, I feel like we hit a wall in development, and it's a shame because we always saw the work that we did as answering to a higher ideal. So why are we creating our portfolio? It's not to show how awesome we are. Graphical work is not meaningful in itself. It is meaningful in a bigger picture. So we're looking for that meaning, and we're trying to convince our own colleagues, look, the reason why our work is worth anything is not because it's so beautiful. It's because it means something. And it can mean something in a change process. It can mean something in finding, in creating better relationships for the organization. It's not about us. It's about them, But then you hit like maybe an ego thing with some people, because their professional identity is built around the fact that they have a unique vision on the world and create one-of-a-kind work. And in order to completely look upon your own work in a completely different way, you're asking a lot from people. And I understand that now. I didn't understand it at the time because it was obvious to me that this is the way it is. Obviously, we're not creating this work for ourselves. We're doing it to create a better world, to create a more honest world where values are front and center, and everything we do should be based around that. But this was not something that we could really drive home with our colleagues. So yeah, that's what happened.
But that insight is used now for your company, values driven, right?
Right.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're nothing if not consistent. We were looking with the band. We were looking for quality getting better. That didn't happen, so we started something else, an advertising agency. In the advertising agency, we started looking for meaning. And once we hit a wall there, we did whatever was necessary to chase what we believed in, and that's called values driven now.
Yeah.
And advertising tends to be the complete polar opposite of what we found interesting in advertising in the first place, which is the search for meaning. And advertising tends to be whatever works, whatever we can manipulate people with to buy our products or services, we will do, and it tends to be devoid of any meaning. And we didn't want to play that game anymore.
Exactly, and that means our services and products are fluid, because when people ask, "So what are you?" Yeah, that's like the most difficult question for me to answer. That depends. We are many things,
Yeah.
and we are different things at different times. Sometimes we manage a project. Sometimes we initiate change. Sometimes we are your house philosophers, and as soon as you put a label on it, you also create these expectations, and borders, and the autonomy, intellectual autonomy, and also our freedom to choose what we do and who we do it with is probably one of the most important cornerstones of our company. And the fact that I call it company already gives me some sort of discomfort, because
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be a company for the law, but we're just two people that want the same thing you want, hopefully, and let's do it,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. And sometimes we inflate a pink church in the parking lot of an organization, and sometimes we take them on a retreat, and sometimes we create a podcast. We do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah. But how do that's I love that idea. But as you start with, okay, you're very experienced. You build up a portfolio. I think you build up a great network, so that helps as well here. But if you start, it could be quite difficult to position yourself, right? If you are open for all the things which is meaningful for you. How did you cope with that in the beginning?
Well, I mean, which is, I go back to the point where, in your 20s, it's the greatest time to start a company, because when I left that company at 32, I think, I had this network, I had this experience. So it wasn't that hard. It wasn't this hard break where it's like, okay, we're a new company and we're going to look for people, et cetera, et cetera. It was kind of an easy landing, because we had projects that we really liked that really fitted with our vision. So it wasn't that scary to start again, because it wasn't starting again.
No,
It's a continuation.
Exactly, it's a continuation of a personal development process that we both go through, and we influence each other in that way also. And obviously, at some point, you have to put borders around it and say, look, this is. We've heard everything. We've entered into a relationship. We analyze your problem. We understand. This is what we think we can do for you. Here it is, and obviously there's a pricing involved in that as well. But we don't say, look, here's our menu, pick and choose. We believe very strongly in the process of tailor making something unique for everyone. because if people don't feel like it's unique, it doesn't have the same value experience.
Yeah.
I
Isn't
cannot
it?
make I cannot make something for you that I make for something else for someone else, because then we are being untrue to our proposition, which is everyone's unique. Everyone has their own set of values, and we base it on your unique experience.
But that
Yep.
needs a lot of capabilities from your side, because I can imagine that it's quite scary if you are entering every company like that, because you don't know what you are going to do, you don't know how to help them, and it's not that you are bringing in a package, this is what we are going to do. It's always listening and based on that deciding, okay,
Yep.
what can we bring here?
I mean, we're by now very comfortable with that position, but I do want to mention that our clients are some of the most brave people I've known, because
Because
they are
they're willing to take that leap of faith as well.
it's like, yeah, we don't know what we're getting, but we're willing to enter into a journey with you, and sometimes that journey takes 2-3 years, so that's a big leap of faith they have to make.
Yeah. So how do you? Okay, so I'm a company. Let's say I'm a company, and I found you. You know, I found values driven. How do
Hmm.
you introduce yourself? Because that's I'm looking for the way how to. Yeah, you know, it's always different, I guess, right?
It is. But
Um,
I would say the most important thing to find is common ground. So I would rather not talk about my services. I would not rather not talk about your company. I would talk about something we both believe in and we both find it's important. Because that's something where you can really connect and form a relationship. And from there on out, you look at, okay, so who are we? What do we do? And how can we maybe come together to do some meaningful work? So
Yeah, and
it's
we have this like this saying we take with us, and with any company, even if you're by yourself, you're dependent on relations, right? So working together is about relationships, and what makes a good relationship? That's trust. And what is trust based on? It's about finding the same things important. So sharing values is the basis of trust, which is the basis of finding and forming good relationships. So be prolific about what you stand for, what you believe in.
yeah,
And that's something that a lot of companies aren't bringing to their clients, because it's like, okay, whatever you want, we'll make it. We're an
yeah,
advertising agency.
yeah.
And once you start opening the dialogue about actual meaning based in actual experience, that is the only way that you can bring about change, I think. It's change is not something to be manipulated. Change is not something to be
managed.
brought about by consultants. It's about offering the experiences which opens you up to grow.
Yeah. So what I would say, we operate in the realm of development, and we don't develop organizations. We offer the context in which individuals can develop their relationships, their personal experience, their communication tool bag. We create places and spaces where people can enter into a meaningful dialogue together, to grow together. And if you try to manage that, like with milestones and deadlines, um, it's not going to last. Because why am I changing? Because somebody's asking me to, but not because I want to do it myself. Because my boss and we believe the same thing, and we want the same thing for ourselves. And if this is true, what do we need to change in order to bring that about?
There's a saying called culture eats strategy for breakfast. So strategy used to be top down. It's like, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to achieve. That means that our company and employees need to follow the line. It was very military. And what is culture? Culture is just like the expansive view of relationships within a company. And if you improve those relationships, if you improve the culture, that is much more effective to achieve success than a good strategy. There's this research that people were asked, how engaged are you with the organization you work for? And I think the global average was 9%. 9% of the people asked And this was by a bona fide research company, right?
It was Nielsen,
Gal-
I think.
no,
Gallup.
no,
Gallup.
Gallup. And then in Holland we tend to think we're ahead of the curve mostly, but in Holland it wasn't much better. It was like 11%. 11% of the people were engaged with the company they work for. So this is a huge problem if you're moving into a purpose economy, or if you claim to be purpose driven or values driven. Then there's on one side there's like upwards of 90% of companies that have core values. On the other side, there's 11% of people being engaged with their companies. In my research, it shows that almost 70% think all those values are bullshit. So there's a huge mismatch, a disconnect between leadership strategizing meaning and that meaning actually being seated in the personal experience of employees, in people. And I think that's a really big shame because, in my opinion, life is about meaning. And then you shouldn't be working for an organization that you don't care about. And you shouldn't be involved in a job that is meaningless to you.
Yeah, but
It's a waste of a life.
yeah, absolutely, I
Yep.
totally agree. But I think it's quite hard to change that mindset for the employees, right? To convince
Well,
them.
well, we never shy away from something that's hard, huh? I mean, the question is, I mean, if I wanted to make easy money, I would do something else, you know. But we're doing this because it's important, not because it's easy.
Yeah, because you believe in it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Important things.
Now we're full
I
circle.
think important things never are easy
No,
yeah.
no.
Well, I think
because there's skin in the game.
yeah, that's true, and I totally believe that this. I absolutely love that mindset that you try to bring. I mean, the individual itself is important, and you have to make your own choices. And to get that insight, I think it's quite hard to get that insight, and it's really helpful if people can guide you there.
Yeah, but it's not, and it's also about managing expectations, because you got to realize that my brother been thinking about this for 20 years. So
Yeah,
so to get to where he is, you know, it takes effort, you know, and it took me a while to understand what he was even talking about. You got to allow yourself some time too, and the expectations are you offer a way to look at the world maybe and in a different way. Whether people pick up on that or not, it's not up to you. You can't force it, so you can only offer it. And then usually what happens is that most people will go back to their daily lives, but a few people will get it, and then the trick becomes, what do we do with this as an organization? So I would argue these people that get it, let's get them into a position where they can make a difference, you know. So these might not be the people with the best CVs or the highest skill set or the highest position within the company, but they are informal leaders in a way. So let's try to identify those people and see how we can position them to have a bigger impact internally.
what I really believe in, if you believe in the things you do, like you do what you do, then you
Yeah.
will convince people. But the thing is how to make them aware of it. That's one, and how to make sure that yeah they have time for it to do so.
I think one of the things that is important in this respect is what you just said. Huh? So how do you make them aware of how special it is they actually are? So this is why you need outside people, because a culture has blind spots too, you know. And if you work in a certain setting with a certain norms for a long time, you don't have the ability to look at yourself anymore in an objective way. So it's nice to have people from the outside looking in and saying, wow, what you are doing here is really quite special. And then they usually say, that's not special, we always do that. Yes, but for an outsider it's special, you just don't realize it yet. So that's one of the answers to your question. I think it's important to have people from the outside looking in once in a while. Really look in. So not just showing them the things that you want to be seen, but just just open yourself up, be vulnerable, because most people want to genuinely help organizations to grow. Um, the second one is, how do you make sure people get a platform or a stage to do that? Well, that completely dependent on the context, because in a way you're doing that right now. You are looking for people who have an interesting story. You invite them in and you share it with people in hopes of inspiring them. A podcast is a way to do that. But there are so many ways to do that, and it depends on the context. It depends on the culture. It depends on the heritage and the legacy of an organization. And this is where tailor made work comes in, because it's unique for every.
And I think it's very important to start at the top, because not so much that the top has more to say than the bottom, in my opinion, because you're inviting people to change and take risks, to be outspoken. Meaning that if they do, and you don't have the mandate from the leadership, then these people are taking a risk and then running the risk of getting punished for it, maybe getting fired in the worst case. And I don't want to have that on my conscience, to have people speak out, maybe to some things that are actually going on the work floor, but leadership isn't aware of. And for them to take the risk, I need to be sure that they are safe to do so. So that means we start at the tops and have the mandate of people being open and not being punished for it.
Yeah. I'm looking at the time, so I wanted to to talk about the church of change as well.
We can go on forever.
Now, I got about half an hour before I go to the bathroom.
No, but let's talk a bit about the Church of Change as well, because I think it's a very interesting thing as well. So you started the Church of Change. I think it's a result of the things you started when you started with values driven, right?
Yep.
What's the thought behind Church of Change?
The thought is directly inspired by my favorite philosopher called Friedrich Nietzsche. And he was talking about, his famous expression is God is dead, right? And what he said wasn't so much based on whether God exists or not, but the problem that we all have. And the problem that we all have is that we kind of cutting out church in our lives. And with that, cutting out meaning and purpose and belief in that life, out of that life. The problem is with people not going to church anymore, that there's no real space or ritual or symbolism to talk about what we believe in. So we figured maybe we can revamp the church, doing that pink inflatable church, or we even rented one old church building one time to talk about what's the meaning of life. And there's all this kinds of visions and stories that you can share. So we can invite philosophers, or we invited the mayor of a large Dutch city one time to talk about what does it mean to live in a city. So we wanted to create a space for meaning without getting paid for it, because Values Driven is obviously a consultancy as well. And we wanted to be to have our hands free to just like form a dialogue about meaning. This is what the Church of Change came to be. It's a space where we can talk about what do we believe in a secular society. So it's talking about values without talking about religion.
So it's pretty much what we always do, but we are taking it out of the commercial context and putting it into the public domain. And we're saying, look, we have an empty space here. Let's go there. Let's all get together and let's talk about the things that actually matter to us in a way that it's not a debate night, because there's plenty of those. But we're trying to add like an extra dimension to this. It's about dialogue, it's about vulnerability, and it's about community.
You know what the beautiful thing is of the things you are doing and your mindset is, I think if I ask friends or my family or whosoever, what should you do when you will win the lottery? I think they will do what you do.
Really?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I would like
give
to
me-
meet your family and friends then.
yeah, they are good leads now. But no, but seriously, I think to bring something to the community, to bring something to the people, to help the people from a social cultural perspective.
Yeah.
I think if you ask a lot of people, they are really willing to do so, but they are uncertain about it. You know, they want to
Yeah,
make money
yeah.
as well. So those are the challenges. So I have to ask: did you win the lottery? Yes or no?
I think
No.
in a way we did. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we had a unique experience as children, being uprooted and being forced into a very uncomfortable situation. But it was the two of us together, and because of this, we got to know each other and trust each other more. You know, and
Aw.
you know, it's the truth. And I'm very grateful for that. It was tough, but it was important for my personal development and the relationship that I have with my brother. It made me look at things in a different way, and I am completely happy with how everything turned out. I am happy with who I am as a person, and if you are convinced that and you know you want to do good in the world, you know, that's what I want. I want to live a comfortable life, but I definitely want to do good in the world. So you find ways of doing that, and it's very simple. If I go to bed at night and I feel like, hey, I've done something for someone else, you know, then then if I can live my life like that, then I've had a meaningful and good life.
Yeah.
It's also what we're talking about, dealing with uncertainty. I think we come from a culture where dealing with uncertainty or fear being the base of operations, you want to take as much as you can because then you're safe, right? If you make a lot of money, if you retire by the time you're 67, you're safe. And I think one of the longest studies is by Harvard, and it dealt with human happiness. And it's something that academic science is now proving that was already a tradition in like Eastern culture. Is happiness is not about taking; it's about giving.
Yeah.
Meaning we have a lot to learn in Western society to find our confidence in which we can give and foster healthy relationships with others.
Yeah. So that's a great challenge ahead, I
I-
guess.
Yeah.
And you're totally motivated to take the challenge. I have only one more question, and that's a question about: do you have somebody in your mind who would be interesting for the before and after show as well?
We sure do.
Yeah, we have this client who is very inspiring, we believe, and his name is Philip Gladich, and he started a scale up managing the energy transition. And what they do is very interesting as well, but he had a really concrete point in his life where he just cruised through life as a college student, didn't have a care in the world. And then his sister, who immigrated to the Netherlands to start a company to do good in the world, she kind of got him on board. It's like, what are you doing with your life? Get over here, immigrate with me, come to Holland, and start doing something meaningful. And then he tells the story about just like a light bulb switching
Yeah,
on,
and he tells it
changing
much-
his life forever.
And he tells us much better than we do. So we shouldn't say any more. But he's a very inspirational guy, and this is exactly the kind of clients that inspire us to do the best work. So we love working with him, and I'd be very interested to see him on your show.
Absolutely.
To see what kind of stories you can extract from it.
Okay, that's a great name. Thank you very much for sharing it, and I will reach out to him, and let's hope that he will join the before and after show as a next guest.
I'm sure he will.
All right, thank you very much, Sander and Stefan.
You're welcome. Thank you
You're
very
very
much as
welcome.
well.